And welcome to the first ever episode of The Culture Show, the show where we talk about African mythology and how it relates to us today. I'm AC3, a total mythology geek. I love all mythology, and I've been curious about African mythology, so I decided to learn more about it. And now I'm going to tell you what I have learned and how it relates to us today. So, today's episode is all about the creation story according to the Yoruba people in West Africa. So, stay tuned. So, before we get into the story, we need to talk about what African mythology is. African mythology is a diverse mythology throughout Africa, featuring gods, goddesses, and legends and epics, all of which I'm going to tell you about throughout the episodes I'm going to create for the podcast. So, according to the origins of the world, a lot of Africans think that this supreme sky god, who originally lived on the earth, but moved up to the sky by means of a spider thread when humans started misbehaving. Earth and water are always goddesses. For the Yoruba, Ile is the goddess of the earth, and Yemoja is the goddess of water. Also, many Africans think of the creation of the world in terms of a huge serpent, usually a python, out of whose body created the world and all creatures came. So, it's crazy. And we're going to do a story based on the Yorubas in West Africa about how they think the creation was made, featuring Obatala, Olukan, and Oluran. I'll tell you about them in the next segment. Character introductory. Character introductory? Alright, I'm trying to make this a funny podcast, so bear with me. Obatala, also known as Orishana, is the god of creation, purity, and creativity. And Olukan, he's the god of the sea and wealth, often depicted as a mermaid, also associated with your dreams. And a lot of people think he's actually a man, so he's like a mermaid man kind of thing. Oluran, also known as Olafin, he goes by a lot of names. He's the supreme god. His name means the Almighty, and he's known as the owner of life in space. Those are the three most important Orishas, and they'll be featured in our story today. And speaking of the story, I guess it's time to dive in to the creation story based on the Yoruba people in West Africa. Before the universe was even created, there only existed a vast expanse of sky above and an endless stretch of water and uninhabited marshes below. And three gods. Oluran, the wisest of the gods, ruled over the sky, while Olukan ruled over the seas and marshes. Both kingdoms were quite separate at the time. There was never any conflict between the two deities. Oluran was more satisfied with his domain in the sky and hardly noticed what took place below him. Olukan was content with his kingdom, with the kingdom she occupied, even though it contained neither living thing or vegetation of any kind. But the young god, Obatala, was not extremely satisfied with the state of affairs. And one day, as he looked down from the sky upon the dull gray terrain ruled by Olukan, he thought to himself, this kingdom below is a pitiful, barren place. Something must be done to improve its murky appearance. Now, if only there were mountains and forests to brighten it up, it would make a perfect home for all sorts of living creatures. Obatala decided that he must visit Oluran, who was always prepared to listen to him. It is a good scheme, but also a very ambitious one, Oluran said to Obatala. I have no doubt that hills and valleys you describe would be far better than gray ocean. But who will create this new world, and how will they go about it? If you give me your blessing, Obatala replied, I will undertake to do this work. Then it is settled, said Oluran. I cannot help you myself, but I will arrange for you to visit my son, Orunmila. He will guide you. Now, Orunmila was the god of divination and your future and destiny. So the next day, Obatala called upon Orunmila, the oldest son of Oluran, who had been given the power to read the future and understand the secret of existence. First, Obatala, he announced, You must find the gold chain long enough for you to climb down to the sky into the watery waste below. Then as you descend, take with you a small shell filled with sand, a white hen, a black cat, and a palm nut. This is how you should begin your quest. Obatala listened attentively to his friend's advice and immediately set out to find a goldsmith who would make him the chain. I would be happy to make you the chain you asked for, Goldsmith, provided you give me all the gold I need, but I doubt you'll find enough here for me to complete the task. Obatala will not be dissuaded, however, and having instructed the goldsmith to go about his work, he approached the other sky gods and one by one explained to him his purpose, asking for his gold. Oh, please, 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 I need some gold so I can create the world down below. All right, said pretty much all the gods. And the goldsmith examined the gold that he brought before him, but still he complained that there was not enough. It's the best I can do, Obatala told him. I have asked all the other gods to help out. There is no more gold left in the sky. Make the chain as long as you possibly can and fix a hook to one end, even if it falls before I reach the water below. I am determined to climb down on it. So the goldsmith worked hard to complete the chain, and when it was finished, the hook was fastened to the edge of the sky, and the chain lowered far below. Orunmila appeared and handed Obatala a bag containing the sand-filled snail shell, a white hen, the black cat, and a palm nut. And as soon as he had slung it over his shoulder, the young god began climbing down the golden chain, lower and lower until he saw that he was leaving the world of light and entering the world of twilight. Before long, Obatala could feel the damp mist rising above the surface of the water. At the same time, he realized that he had just about reached the end of his golden chain. I cannot jump down from here, he thought. But if I let go of the chain, I will fall into the sea and almost certainly drown. And while he looked around himself helplessly, he suddenly heard a familiar voice. Make use of the sand I gave you, Orunmila instructed him. Toss it into the water below. Obatala obeyed, and he had poured out the sand. He heard Orunmila calling him a second time. Release thy white hen. Obatala reached into his bag and pulled out the white hen, dropping her onto the water beneath where he had sprinkled the sand. As soon as she had landed, the hen began to scratch in the sand, scattering in all directions, and where the grains fell, dry land instantly appeared. The larger heap became sands, became hills, and where the smaller heaps became valleys. Obatala let go of the chain and jumped down on the solid earth. As he smiled with pleasure, for the land now extended a great many miles in all directions. But he was proudest of the spot where his feet first landed, and decided to name the place Ife. Stooping to the ground, he began digging a hole and buried the palm nut in the soil. Immediately, a palm tree sprang up from the earth, shredding its seeds as it stretched to its full height, so that other trees soon should shoot up around it. Obatala felled some of these trees and built himself a sturdy house, thatched with palm leaves. And here, in this place, he settled down, separate from the other gods, while only his black cat for company. The end. So, that was the story of the creation, according to the Yoruba people of West Africa. So, remember what I said earlier about the spider web and the god climbing down it? Well, it's kind of like it, but except they use the golden chain. So, how does it relate to us today? Well, first, it's determination. That's one of the themes of the story. Because Obatala was determined to make creation and all the people in it. And I think it takes a lot of grit to do that. And plead to the gods for gold and whatever they had. And a white shell and a black hen and a cat. So that takes a lot of grit to determination. Also say obedience really too, because Orunmila, he told him to do all this stuff, and he did it, and look what he got, a whole new world. And now he's relaxing with his black cat for company. So I think those are two great themes of the story and how it relates to us today. You gotta have the determination to do whatever you can and whatever you need to do, and you'll reap the profits of it, which is a whole new world for Obatala. But what are your determination? What do you need to do to get to your destination? Please let me know, and maybe I'll post your questions on the next episode of the podcast. Time for today's question of the day. That wasn't the only question I wanted you to think about. So here's the question of the day. How would you create the world? For me, I'd probably use some kind of magical pixie dust like they use in the Disney movies, sprinkle all over the place and say bippity boppity boo, and probably hope the world would be created. And if I make football, I use a lot of cheese heads to make Lambeau Field, and all the sports arenas. That'd be pretty dope. So how would you create the world? Tell me through the Q&As and comments below, and maybe I'll put your answer on the next episode of my podcast. So keep the questions coming, and that's the question of the day. Well, that's the show. Thank you for watching the first ever episode of The Culture Show, the show where we talk about African mythology and how it relates to us today. In the next episode, we'll talk about how Obatala created mankind from the Yoruba people in West Africa. Also, a birthday shout out to my boy Alex. It's his birthday today, so happy birthday to him. Also, give us a 5-star review and subscribe to our podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!